Hi, it's Leah Richeimer for the Ladies Talk Show. We are good to go, and we are starting chapter 4. You guys should all be proud of yourself. Hold on a sec. Let me see. Why doesn't it have a page? Don't you hate that? Like no page number. Thank you. Okay, so it must be page 71 because the other. Okay, fine. Here we go. Ready? The secret to happiness. Are you guys doing a drum roll? Like, come on, let's go. The secret to happiness. Yeah, there she is. They're doing it. She thinks, why is my husband so busy doing other things that he puts no effort into doing the one thing that is the most important, his most important job, meeting my needs? Why do I have to suffer the indignity of yearning for something that my husband has no interest in providing, and yet I so desperately need? Isn't it his obligation to meet my needs? Isn't that why I got married in the first place? Don't I deserve to have my needs met? And why do I have to witness other husbands provide so nicely for their wives, only to watch my husband seem to willfully ignore my own needs? And this is not just about material needs. It's even more about emotional and spiritual needs. Why must I crave so badly for my husband to meet my needs, and yet I can't even bring up the topic because it's always met with, hold on a sec, I'll tell you what it's met with. Okay. It's always met with anger and defensiveness, and never results in my needs being met anyway. Am I meant to suffer, just suffer silently, accepting my lot in life with a lingering ache that will never go away, causing me to lash out in anger? Won't someone just wake up my husband and explain to him that meeting my needs should be the top priority in his life? That's the man. The woman thinks. Now we're going to do the man. He thinks. Ready? He thinks, why is my wife never satisfied with anything I do for her? Why does she make so many demands of me? Why does she have an endless list of things she wants? And no matter how hard I try, I can never truly satisfy them. Why does it seem as if she is never grateful for what I do? She only seems to notice what I don't do. Will I have to spend the rest of my life craving something I will never get, the satisfaction of seeing her pleased with me? Yikes. Are you guys with me here? You're like, everyone's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, so by the way, you should just know that Sonia says, I feel this all the time. She feels the women's.
The women's, not the men, right? Okay, got it.
Oh, wait, but she actually writes, my husband says this to me all the time. So
there you go. There you go. Okay. And why does my wife compare me to every husband who ever walked the earth? Another man can do one nice thing, and I'm reminded about it for years. Why can't my wife ever be happy with the effort I put in? It's just never enough, no matter how hard I try. Why doesn't she recognize that I'm trying every way I know how, but nothing I ever do makes a difference? My wife seems to be completely oblivious to any effort I put in. It's almost like she has a blind spot and doesn't even notice anything I do, especially if it's not done exactly how she wants it. And if it seems like I've given up trying to meet her needs, maybe it's because nothing I ever do gets acknowledged anyway. So why should I even try? Ugh. Won't someone just wake up my wife and explain to her how hard I've worked to try to please her and to meet her needs, and have nothing to show for it, but to feel like an utter failure? Okay. Wow. That's the man's side and the woman's side. And this is called the secret to happiness. So we're going to find that out in this chapter as we go along. But right now, it's not looking so good. How can both of these sentiments above rings so true? Like, right? They're the opposite sides. Both of them seem so true. They are so diametrically opposed to each other. Yet how can we agree so thoroughly with the wife's perspective and also see things from the husband's point of view as well? Why does she so genuinely feel that her needs are not being met? And why does he feel so confident that he is doing everything in his power to meet her needs, and he just never hits the mark? What's going on here? And more importantly, how do we fix it? I was once standing at the podium with a bunch of women milling around, waiting to speak to me after a lecture. It seems everyone was taken aback by my statement, quoting Rabbi Yisrael Meir, that a husband desires desperately for his wife to be happy. Okay, that was the quote. Everyone wanted me to meet me confidentially, so there was no other choice but to pull each person aside privately, which is what I did. And thus I proceeded to have the exact same conversation many times in a row. You see, I am different, they each would say with a disheartened tone. I landed up with a husband who truly has no interest in making me happy. Their admission to me and facing the stark realization by verbalizing it sucked all the life out of their faces. They each looked bereft of all hope. My heart ached for them, but then I asked, was this always true in your relationship? They each thought for a moment. You understand, it's like all different people, and they're all having the same conversation. They each thought for a moment and then responded, no, actually, when we were dating for the first part of our marriage, my husband seemed very interested in making me happy. I would pause, letting them reflect on that time. Then I would ask the million-dollar question, what changed? With minor variations, they each talked about the tumult of life, the distractions, the busyness, but not one identified the true culprit. Okay, that's the problem. We set up the problem. Next class, we're going to talk about the solution. You got to stay tuned. But right now, we're going to take questions on the problem. Okay, go ahead, Sarit, you're on.
Okay, so Talia says, do you think that social media, for example, Instagram, does more harm than good for us women? There's so much comparing, jealousy, etc., from seeing perfectly curated lives. What is your opinion, especially when it comes to marriage and seeing other people's perfect marriages?
Right. So, duh. No insult. Talia, her name was whatever. No insult, but yeah, it's very, very hard. I think it's done a lot of damage. Of the, they have a whole studies out now that people who spend a lot of time on social media have a higher risk of depression, divorce, unhappiness with their life, and so forth. It's conclusive. What seems obvious has now been proved by scientific studies. But how do we solve that? That doesn't help us, because we're not shutting down social media anytime soon. What it means is that you have to limit your time, and you also have to be able to understand what is the most important thing in your life, having this entertainment or taking care of your husband, taking care of your family. So everybody has to judge that for themselves. And if you have a problem with it, look, there's a lot of people, what they did with social media is they went to, I don't know if you know this, but when you go to Las Vegas, it's not, heard of it or it's been there. They have scientists who say, okay, the first thing should be nothing. The second thing, nothing. The third one should give you 37 cents back on your dollar. The fourth, fifth, and sixth should do nothing and take your money. Then the sixth one should be, you get 27 cents. And whatever they designed it in exactly the scientific way to maximize your staying as long as possible at that slot machine. Then Silicon Valley went and raided all of these people from Vegas and said, what's the way to keep them on social media the longest, with likes and dislikes, and how do we do it? And there's a guy who, when you pull down your phone, for those of you who have smartphones, you pull down your phone and then you see this thing going around, and it's trying to fetch new mail for you. And the guy who designed that, he was just working as what I'm saying may not be 100% accurate. I heard this from a third party, but it was fascinating. It sounds like it could be true, which is scary enough. But he designed, his company said, make something so that it's really addictive and like fun to sort of see and watch and wait. And he said that more people pull down their email than across billions of people across the planet are using the programming he did to make that pull down thing. And he said, there's no amount of tshuva. What's the word for tshuva?
Repentance.
There's no repentance he can do on the planet Earth until he dies to overcome the damage he's caused the planet Earth, people in this world. There's nothing he can do. So what he does now, I've heard, is he goes from high school to high school and talks about internet addiction. He said, that's it I can do. I can make a little tiny blip in this horrible thing I've created in the world. But he's gotten everybody going to Vegas out all day long. They're pulling their thing down. So social media, that's what they're out to get you. And as we talked about in the last show, forewarned is forearmed. So now that you know that they're trying to get you, maybe that'll help you. Okay, Siri, let's go to the next question.
Okay, so Kayla says, my husband says this to me all the time. He says, I'm the high maintenance wife, that I'm hard to please. It makes my blood boil because I'm not that at all. It's all his perspective. I'm constantly raising the kids and working all the time to please him. I barely have time for self-care. How does he have the audacity to call me that?
She needs to get herself a giant sweatshirt, and on the front it needs to say high maintenance woman and proud of it. Ain't nothing wrong with that. It's his privilege to be married to somebody who's high maintenance, and you got to own it. And there's nothing wrong with it. It's completely fine. If you handle it with humor and you handle it softly and yummy and warm and say, I'm really sorry, but I don't like pizza with things on it. So if you want it, you can get it on the side and pour it on whatever it is that you're high maintenance about. And if it's high maintenance, you're sensitive to how he talks to you and you're whatever. This is the gift that God gave him. And ain't nothing wrong with it. So here's the thing. A woman has to, as she has humor about it and says, I know, thank God, you're not a woman and you have to deal with it. Like you have to be me. I've got my head's going like a million miles an hour. At least not that. You just have to deal with somebody whose head is doing that, but my head's doing that now. Or I really have a strong feeling about this and women's intuition and I can't get over it. And it has to be the way, it has to be my way or the highway. I'm so sorry. You know what? If you do this way, my way, then I'll let you go bowling Tuesday nights like you wanted or whatever. Like, in other words, if you own it, if you own your high maintenance, it's okay. And if you give up and say, I realize I'm being way too high maintenance right now. Let's just, okay, well, the kids, okay, everyone, we're at the beach. Everyone can take their shoes off. Just bring the sand in the car. I will deal with it. I realize I'm high maintenance. If you own it and you cut slack on a lot of areas, then it becomes okay. But if you are just high maintenance and this is the way it is, it's not going to go well. So get yourself a sweatshirt. Okay, next question.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so Mindy says, any practical tips for complimenting my husband and actively expressing my appreciation for him more? I feel terrible, but I always forget to do these things and I know negatively affects my husband. I can't leave notes around the house about it, and I have a kosher phone, so I can't leave reminders.
Why can't she leave notes around the house? Maybe she doesn't want the kids to see, I guess. Okay.
Right. Yeah, could be the stuff that she's wants appreciation.
Right. So the Rav Salanter and the whole Mr. movement has all kinds of reminders. I mean, there's a big gadol, I don't remember who it is, used to wear a rubber band on his arm, and when he felt like saying lashon hara, he would go bing, bing, bing to remind himself. So for you, I don't know what it is. You maybe leave cups of water around the house and you see the water and you're like, why is there a cup in the middle of the living room and someone's going to spill it and whatever. And then you pick it up and a few minutes later, so your husband won't know that cups of water have anything to do with it, perhaps. You have to do things in stealth mode. But basically, find other ways to remind yourself that a rubber band, a red thing. I had somebody who was doing their avodas in Avad, and so when they did their thing, they switched it from one hand to the other, and they went back to the other hand, and then went back, with a string or something like that. I can't remember. There's many different you have to be a little creative, but come up with things. You could instead of having notes around, don't forget to compliment your husband, you could take in the morning, you wake up, you put the kids, get the kids off to school or before they go to school, and you take a Post-it note and you put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 on it, and you put around the house 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then when you say the first compliment, you take off the 1, then you take off the 2, then you take whatever, and you've given your husband 5 compliments a day. Get creative. It's important for your closeness, not for making him feel good, but for making filling up your neshama, your soul, with being close with your husband. The most important thing that we do is nurture that closeness, and this is going to do it for you. So just try. If nothing I said rings a bell or goes clink or whatever, get a friend and talk to each other about it and come up with plans, or something you used in the past for something else. You were on a diet and it really worked for you to have water bottles or whatever it is. Go to your past to look for things that work to get habits ingrained in yourself. Okay. Or read books on how to have good habits. Okay, Sarit, go ahead.
Okay, so Ariella says, do you agree in prioritizing daily or weekly activities of self-care? I feel like I don't even have an extra minute to do something for myself, like getting a manicure, massage, etc. But everyone on social media is always talking about the importance of self-care.
Okay, so self-care is a very strange thing. So for some reason, massages and nails have become the it for self-care. Maybe self-care is just, going into the ladies' room and taking 5 minutes to read a joke book. I'm not quite sure what self-care means or what it should mean. The the issue really boils down to something very, very deep, which is that we are such a frenzied nation that now it's saying, okay, you need to have mindfulness, and you need to meditate, and you need to do yoga, or like that. You need to slow the thing down. What might work better is, instead of taking 10 things on, you only took 5 things on. And you, instead of having a meeting at 10 o'clock and 11 o'clock and at 12 o'clock and at 1 o'clock, you had a meeting at 10 o'clock, and then you scheduled your next one 11:30, even though it was going to end at 11. Like that. It's that I think is much more crucial to our self-care than having one more thing on our to-do list. I gotta get to the masseuse. That doesn't quite make it. Excuse me. So okay, let's see. So her question about self-care is, I think it's almost this whole movement towards self-care. There's something about it that it's good that women are taking care of themselves, but there's something also about it, about spending money, or doing something a little self-centered, or something like that. I'm not quite sure. So I guess I'd have to give it more thought. But to answer this question right now, define self-care like differently than you currently are thinking of it, and those kinds of things, of not taking on so many things, not having a conversation with your mother-in-law for 2 hours because it stresses you out. So tell them, oh, mother-in-law or ma, whatever you call her, I'm so happy you called, but I have to go at 2. That's called self-care. So define it a little bit better, and don't get caught up in the whole social media, as we've been talking about, social media definition of self-care. Okay, next question.
Okay, so Shira says, I've been struggling with my confidence and self-esteem ever since becoming pregnant because I've gained weight and my face is broken out. I'm embarrassed in front of my husband, although he always tells me how beautiful I am. What can I do to feel better about myself?
First thing is that think of yourself as 5 spheres. One sphere is your weight and looks. One sphere is your emotional stature, where you're holding. Like you just had the baby, and you know what? It's 3 weeks out, and you're stopped complaining about the physical, and you're really emotionally, you're doing strong. Maybe you're not, but whatever. Just look at it at a different spirit. Spiritually, you know what? Even through all I'm going through, I still daven every day. At least I say the morning brachas, or at least I bench after every meal. Something that you're doing spiritually that you're proud of. I keep Shabbos the best I can. I still, even through all of this, I still make challah, or I had to buy challah, but I put together, I really give a lot of thought to what I'm serving for the meal, even though it's takeout or whatever. Find the good in what you're doing. And then you're, caretaking. You're caretaking your husband, you're caretaking your family, you're caretaking your home. Another aspect is how you're handling the community. So if you look at yourself as you're just what you ate and what your face looks like, and whatever, and the pimples and whatever, if that's who you are, yeah, you're going to feel pretty low about yourself. But if you look at the whole other aspects of yourself, that and focus on those and less on the physical, I think you'll start to feel better about yourself. And try it. It's worth trying. And if you if it's not working, if you try this for a few weeks to try and get your mind shifted to these other areas, find a book on self-esteem and how to grow it, and maybe go talk to a rabbi, Rebbitzin, something like that. It's good. It's a good question. Okay, sorry.
Okay, so Hodiah asks, there isn't enough time in the day. I wake up early, I go to sleep late, I tend to the husband and then the kids. I even make time for myself, but I want to be tended to as I even make time for myself, but I want to be tended to as well. Okay, she makes time for herself, but she actually wants others to tend to her as well as she
Okay.
tends to them. I am very communicative with what it is that I want, and it's always the same thing: attention in big caps. What else can I possibly do to get attention? I don't want to fight with my husband. That's negative attention. What can I do?
Beautiful. Okay. So again, this isn't a tender moment because a woman who wants attention, right, and isn't getting the attention she needs and is just running ragged or whatever. It's funny because when men come up to me and they say, "Oh, Leah, you've helped my wife so much. You have men's classes. What do you do?" And I'm like, "No, men are easy." They're like, "Oh yeah," and I said, "Yeah, it's the 3 A's. You need the first. You do these 3 things for your wife, and she'll be happy." And I'm like, "Oh, what's that?" Number 1 is attention. Number 2 is appreciation. And number 3 is American Express card. And I got them in the wrong order. Okay. So, they all, yeah, they get a chuckle about it. But attention is crucial. And it's a lot of truth to it, actually. But attention is very important. And if you aren't getting the attention, you need to figure out why. When your husband gives you attention, are you just complaining to him? When you're, again, everyone's going to say, "Oh, you're blaming the victim," but I'm just saying, a victim has no power to do anything. But if you do introspection and you take a look at the situation and think, what am I doing? There's always something a woman can do. No matter what your situation is and how bad and whatever, there's always, look, if there's abuse and whatever, but even there's something you can do. Get out. There's always something you can do. So here's the thing: when you are in that situation and you need attention from your husband, think about, what am I doing to block that attention? Am I so busy when he comes home from work? I'm busy with the kids and I'm making lunches and I'm this and whatever. Am I so busy that he can't even give me attention? Well, maybe if I made the lunches while the kids were at school, maybe, if I got my friend to do carpool for me instead, maybe if I, whatever, what logistics can I do in my life so I can get the attention I need? And my husband has the emotional stamina to give me the attention I need. If you're complaining every time he starts giving you attention, you start telling him everything that's wrong, or you start criticizing him. Or when he gives you attention, you're like, "Oh, I'm so happy." He sits down next to you on the couch to talk to you. And you're like, "Oh, can you change the light bulb? Oh, can you, what I'm saying? Like, are you sabotaging your marriage by desperately wanting the attention and then doing everything you can to make it so it's impossible for him to give it to you? And a lot of times, if a woman has some kind of a syndrome, a dysfunctional pattern in her life, let's say your father never gave her attention, he was always working. So she'll almost, the feeling of feeling lost and alone and lonely and missing him and whatever, that she felt with her father is like a ingrained habit. So now she creates that in her husband to replay, to have those same emotions that she's used to, because maybe now she'll get over them. These are very deep issues. This isn't therapy and I'm not a therapist. I'm just saying this kind of introspection helps you to see what's real from what's your story about what's real. And you just need to examine yourself, because there's always something a wife can do. And yeah, and I just wish you very, very good luck in doing that introspection. You might need help with it. You might need a therapist or counselor or coach or somebody to work that out, to try and introspect so you can get your deepest needs met. Very good. Okay, last question, Saree.
Okay, yeah, last question is, it seems to be a very popular social media show.
Okay.
So Esther says, how do you work on feelings of jealousy towards other couples, especially in this world of social media? It's so hard not to compare.
Excellent question. Okay, so first of all, the best thing I can tell you, the way to make is, look, we're not supposed to be jealous. You're not supposed to do whatever. Be happy with your own lot. Be happy with your life. Make a journal of all the things you're appreciative about your life. Those are all good. They'll all work. But what might be the most powerful is that whatever you see with your own eyes ain't real. There's almost the more fancy and wonderful the life looks, the more likely there's something.
It's a lie.
It's a lie. It's a lie. Okay. It's a lie. So you have to understand. Now, look, I'm in the business of dealing with people's marriages and lives and what's going on. And, the people who have this perfect picture perfect, Instagram perfect life. And then they start telling me this and this and this and this. And by the time I hear all of the stuff that they're dealing with, it's not normal. So you should just know whatever you're seeing is the image they would like to project, that they they want to have this gloss of their life. That's what the whole social media world is all about. So understanding that will hopefully get you on the other side of it, and not being so you'll know that what you're jealous of is an illusion, that it's all illusion. There's nothing there. Now, I don't know if you've seen these kind of tell shows where the wife is sitting there saying, "No, it's not true. Come on, get in the picture, Okay, but why did you do that? And then they took that picture, where everybody's crying, everyone's screaming, the kids are crying, whatever. The husband's like, "I can't believe you're making me do that," and then he's smiling. That is the reality. And so to be jealous of an illusion is, as you can see yourself, a waste of time. So one time this week, ladies, this is your try this at home this week. One time this week, resist checking anything, your social media. Go off the grid for an hour. Okay. 1 hour. Pick a time, not 3 a.m. to 4 a.m. Okay. I got you. Okay. It's gotta be a time when, in the middle of something like 10 a.m. to 11 a.m., something where you're going to go off the grid and see how it makes you feel. And maybe write in. I'd love to hear info@Ladies Talk Show, and write down, I went off social media this week and here's the thing that happened to me. I actually, my husband came and paid me attention. How's that? So we'd love to hear it. Okay. This is Leah Richeimer for the Ladies Talk Show. We'll see you next time.